Ninjago has been around for a long time. A super long time. The show started out with great characters and great stories, but as time had gone on, I feared that the aspects of the show that I used to love had begun to wear thin. Main characters were repeating arcs, villains were being recycled, and plots were being rehashed. Ninjago was starting to overstay its welcome, and right when I thought that it was getting better and starting to make meaningful changes to its status quo, all of the problems I just mentioned came in at full force to create what I believe to be the worst season of Ninjago to date. So to say that I'm happy about the direction Dragons Rising has gone would be an understatement. I am simply overjoyed by this new series, and I'm here today to explain why it works so well as not only a direct continuation of Ninjago, but also a standalone series and jumping on point for new viewers. So let us dive into Dragons Rising Part 1. So yeah, Dragons Rising is following a rather unfortunate season to say the least. I have an entire video on why Crystallize was such a colossal disappointment in my eyes, and my opinions on it have only gotten worse since. The point is, Dragons Rising had to do a lot to get me back on board. At first, in my mind, I thought that would mean addressing the problems with Crystallized and doing some major course corrections in order to get the story back on board. I initially hated the idea of completely ignoring the previous season in favor of attracting new viewers, but I couldn't have been any more wrong with that mindset. A fresh start is exactly what the show needed, but it does way more than just act as a new beginning. Dragons Rising completely redefines the world of Ninjago and its characters. So let's explore that, shall we? The merge was a brilliant idea. It's a concept that represents why Dragons Rising works so well as a soft reboot to the original show. It takes a concept that longtime fans will always know and love, the 16 mysterious and fantastical realms, and uses that idea to craft a new world that new viewers can explore alongside old fans of the show. The merge creates a status quo shift that doubles as a basis for a new world building. The world and setting of a story usually serves as a major pillar of its foundation, but you can't exactly go back and change the foundation once it's been built. Ninjago already established its world back in the pilots in Season 1. All it could do since is build upon it. The initial introduction of the realms in possession served as a grand piece of world building that the writers could use to explore new concepts that simply weren't possible in Ninjago, which in turn added to the world building and lore of the show, but Ninjago itself pretty much stayed the same. But now with Dragons Rising, we have a shift in the world that is so drastic it redefines the core foundations of our setting. The foundation is still there, but it's been vastly expanded, and it's a status quo shift like this that the show has been needing for years. The merge has allowed for a ton of stories that simply wouldn't have been possible beforehand, and I believe that part 1 of this first season has already taken great advantage of that. The world is so much larger and more complicated now. Old characters' viewpoints are being shifted, and new characters are exploring this new world right alongside them, as well as the audience. Old fans get to see all these fun references of past realms and adventures, while new fans are discovering all this vast new world for the first time. We spend time meeting plenty of new characters that sell you on this world and how things have changed over the years. The foundational world building that you would expect to see in a brand new series is on display here. We learn about the crossroads, revisit old locations such as the Realm of Madness and Cloud Kingdom, and discover new realms such as Imperium. Each place feels lived in and adds depth to the world. It reminds me of how I felt discovering Ninjago for the first time in its first initial installments. How I felt seeing the underworld of Ninjago and Ninjago City for the first time. But I'd argue here it's even better. When we saw Ninjago City initially, it was just kind of a city. We didn't really interact with many civilians or experience that many unique events in this location. Yeah, there were hints of this stuff, but it took a while for this place to be fully fleshed out. But I already feel like I have a better understanding of the crossroads from just a few episodes. We see how it's a center point for all the merged realms, we meet civilians who have their own professions and goals, and we see events that take place in this location, alongside seeing how our main characters interact with the location. It's a great example of how to flesh out a setting so it feels believable and real. Another huge example of well-done world building is Imperium. Imperium is probably one of the most interesting places we have ever seen in Ninjago. If you think back to other recent notable locations previously, such as Shintaro or Merlopia, you'll notice that we don't really know much about these locations. Shintaro is really cool and pretty looking, but we don't really get much of an idea of how it's run. We know Vangelis uses Vengestone to fund the kingdom, but that's about it. We don't really know much about Shintaro's people, what their military does, or what the different levels of power are, how the citizens feel about about their home, but when we visit Imperium, we learn so much about how this place operates, and that's extra important here because the way Imperium operates plays directly into the story of the season. Especially since one of our new main characters is directly tied to Imperium, which is another great way to sell us on this world. We learn a lot about Imperium through Sora's flashbacks. Everything that happens in Imperium is mandated under Empress Beatrix. And when I say everything, I mean everything. School curriculums, the things that scientists can research and invent, and even when people are allowed to have recreational time. And it really paints this picture of a sad dystopian world where all the people are just thankful for what they have because it was given by the Empress. Well, being sent places on literal conveyor belts to signify how they're all just cogs in a machine that is Imperium. And while I admit it's pretty on the nose, the presentation of Imperium conveys to the audience exactly how this world operates. It also helps give a surprising amount of depth to the standard army building henchmen, as the kids you see in these flashbacks would mostly later grow up to be parts of the Claw of Imperium, or any other professions directly mandated by the Empress. In fact, we even run into a group of kids who wish to be parts of the Claws of Imperium, and the effect that the system has had on them is clear as it's directly contrasted with Eren, who grew up in Ninjago, and is completely oblivious to this way of life. So not only do we have scenes showing how an outsider's viewpoint and past experiences clash with the experiences and viewpoints of people in Imperium, we also have scenes showing how someone who grew up in Imperium was affected and shaped into who they are because of it. This adds a really surprising amount of depth to this newly established villain faction, and it's all because of how incredible the world building works with our main two protagonists for the season. So I think it's about time we dive further into our new leads for Dragons Rising, as they are probably the most important part of the new season. Eren and Sora are being set up to be fantastic characters. Only time will tell how they turn out, but I can already tell that the groundwork is pretty solid. My main concern is whether or not these characters will have enough interesting stuff to go through before running out of arcs and retreading old ground like our main cast of ninja have fallen victim to. But I think from this foundation, it seems that there's much more planned for these characters than meets the eye. Eren is your pretty standard optimistic and good-hearted protagonist who always wants to do what's best. An interesting thing about Eren, however, is the fact that he grew up as a fan of the ninja, making his dynamic with the rest of the group more interesting as a result, as he looks up to the others and especially Lloyd, wanting to impress them as much as possible. And it's really fun to see him geek out over the ninja every once in a while. He is also the first and only character to learn Spinjitzu on his own. This obviously sets him up for great things, but also plants the seeds for some really interesting mystery as to why Eren was able to learn such a complex technique without any training, and a huge part of making important and interesting protagonists is giving some mystery behind them, which I can say this season has been able to do pretty successfully with its two new main leads. And of course, a good character needs some good struggles to go through, and while Eren's struggles are pretty simple, they are decently effective for this first set of episodes. Since Eren lost his parents in the merge, he longs for something similar, as it seems Sora has been his only close friend for however long it's been since the merge. After meeting Lloyd, we begin to see a connection between the two. Just like Eren, Lloyd too lost his family in the merge, with Wu and the rest of the ninja disappearing, and while we slowly begin to meet up with the other ninja, that sense of found family is still there as Lloyd continues to bond with Eren and Sora. This is the closest thing that Eren has had to a family since the merge, and I think it's really nice to see him officially become part of the team by the end. Of course, Eren still has a lot of training to go, but he has to overcome his first major character struggle. My hope is we see more laid out for him. Right now, I'm not really sure where they're going to take him next. He's yet to receive an actual suit, so I'd assume he still has some character growth remaining, at least I'd hope. Next up, we have Sora, a skilled mechanic and inventor, as well as being a brand new elemental master of technology. Sora almost acts as a viewer insert, as she is learning about Ninjago for the first time along with any new viewers who may be watching. She has no idea who the ninja are until meeting them. She's only really ever heard Eren talk about them. She's also a super fun character in her own right and has the most interesting story throughout the first 10 episodes in my opinion. Like I mentioned before, Sora is from Imperium, the main villain faction of the season. After inventing an indestructible device known as the Photon, she's invited to work directly for Imperium. However, once seeing what her device is being made to do, and how it's hurting the dragons of Imperium, she runs off and tells her parents what's going on. Her parents, being loyal to the Empress, are disappointed in their daughter and practically disown her. Once the merge happens, she's lucky enough to escape from Imperium and would later go on to meet Eren. This tie to Imperium adds a lot of depth to not only Sora as a character, but the plot itself. Seeing how Sora was shaped by her experiences in Imperium is incredibly interesting, and the fact that she invented the Imperium's greatest weapon is really cool and vital for the story moving forward, as Sora is the only one who knows their weakness in the end. And not only does Sora struggle with her past with Imperium, but she also struggles with her newfound powers. It's pretty standard for a character with new powers to struggle first before fully mastering their new abilities. It's an easy way to give said character an arc of some kind and challenges them to improve over the course of the story. However, we see an added layer of this as Sora doubts herself and questions whether or not she even has powers to begin with. Ryu is what gives her the ability to use her powers, so when she tries to use her powers on her own but fails, it causes her to doubt herself. I think this is a really interesting struggle for her to go through, and only adds to her character and makes me want to root for her even more. These added struggles with Imperium and her self-doubt give me confidence that they have a lot they can do with Sora in the future. For these reasons, I believe that thus far she has the most potential of all the characters. Nothing here is incredibly groundbreaking, but it works as a great basis for what could be one of Ninjago's greatest protagonists if written well in the future. It's also important to mention that while Eren and Sora are great on their own, their dynamics with each other is also super important on selling the audience on this new show. Since they are our main leads, it's good to see that they have fun chemistry and banter with one another that can easily carry an episode without needing to rely on the old characters. The entire first episode is solely focused on these two and their dynamic with each other. While Sora seems to be more reserved and doubtful, Eren is more outgoing and hopeful, but clumsy as well. Both play off each other really well, and once they meet Lloyd, we see how both react to becoming heroes in their own ways. Never at any point do these characters feel interchangeable, which is incredibly important when introducing two main characters of equal importance to the story. It's super refreshing to finally get new main characters who can stand on their own and have meaningful arcs and stories. While I love the original Ninja, it's clear that the writers had ran out of things to do with them, and even when given opportunities to have them go through interesting arcs, they unfortunately didn't take them, leaving us with a cast of characters that felt bland and worn out. But now with two new leads, the writers have been able to breathe new life into the show. Additionally, the writers are able to bring back old characters without having to worry about them having meaningful arcs, since they usually just show up as cameos / supporting characters. The only OG ninja who plays a main role in the story is Lloyd, which I was honestly pretty skeptical on going in. Lloyd for me had easily become my least favorite character in the main cast after Crystallized, but fortunately he is nothing like how he has been for the last few seasons. Lloyd has been in a weird spot for a while, since it seemed he was going down a pretty clear path until Sons of Garmadon rolled around. Yeah, the Oni trilogy was great for him, but it kinda knocked him off course a little bit when Hands of Time was clearly setting him up to be the new sensei or master of the team. So it's great to finally see Lloyd in the role he was destined to be in. Seeing Lloyd as an actual sensei to these new ninja recruits is a natural continuation of his character after the main saga had concluded, and he's entertaining enough here to make me forget about everything I didn't like about him from previous seasons. And I think that the time skip greatly helps in this case because it allows me to infer that he's had a lot of personal growth since the last time we've seen him. However, while Lloyd is a huge improvement, I still want more from him. And while I assume more is coming, I wish Lloyd's struggles were more fleshed out here. We have this whole thing with Lloyd remembering Wu's words about finding peace within himself, which in the moment was cool, but in retrospect, kind of feels a bit oddly placed within this set of episodes. Him remembering Wu's words after he has had to take his place is fitting, but we don't really see much of how Lloyd feels about Wu's disappearance. It's obvious that he's been affected by it, but the lack of any real focus on it makes this moment kind of come out of nowhere for me. Yeah, there was a tad bit of focus, but I would have liked to see a lot more, especially when some of it was kind of played off for gags, which were funny, but it would have been nice to see some more serious moments with Lloyd contemplating Wu's disappearance and how he would handle it moving forward, which in turn I think would have made this scene a lot more rewarding when he finally has to use his wise words in a situation of need. And while Lloyd has a really cool power-up moment by the end, he really only uses said power to open a door. So yeah, while Lloyd is characterized extremely well, I don't think enough time was spent on his particular struggles throughout the season, which with the other ninja I can excuse since they aren't part of the main trio, but since Lloyd is a main character along with Sora and Eren, I really wish he was fleshed out as much as those two. Not to say he wasn't fleshed out, I just would have liked to see a bit more. And when we go back to said power-up moment, there was a really important scene where Lloyd has a vision that could be foreshadowing some stuff in the future, and I really hope that this scene deeply affects his character moving forward. Or else, again, this huge power-up moment would really just boil down to Lloyd getting powered up to open a door. Overall though, when it comes to the new main cast, introducing Eren and Sora as new leads for the series was a fantastic idea, and it allows the show to have new characters with new arcs that couldn't have been explored previously, while also helping new viewers get into the show. It was a fantastic decision that I can safely say is paying off. It's really hard to keep a show fresh and interesting after 10 years, and by the time Crystallized came around, and even far before then, I was starting to notice the cracks appearing. Characters begun repeating arcs, stories were rehashing familiar plot points from older seasons, nostalgia bait fan service was starting to be implemented as a replacement for good writing. So to say I'm extremely relieved about the new direction of the show would be an understatement. This soft reboot of Ninjago has done what no other Ninjago soft reboot has done in the past. It expanded the world and cast in ways that makes the show as a whole feel brand new and inviting for both longtime fans and newcomers alike. Dragons Rising has breathed new life into a series that badly needed it. It's easy to worry about the future of the show despite this, however. We all know how having high expectations of future content has panned out in the past. Maybe part 2 will be really disappointing. Maybe we'll have another disastrous installment a few years down the line. But the fact of the matter is that Dragons Rising Season 1 Part 1 has hooked me, and until I see surefire signs of a declining quality, I am more than happy to follow with this new show to see where it goes in the future. Thank you guys so much for watching this brand new video on Dragons Rising. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you did and you want to see even more discussion, go check out the most recent episode of Ninjago Cast where we talk about Dragons Rising Part 1. You could get some even more juicy opinions on the season overall, as in this video I kind of only touched on the things that I really enjoyed. Also, I'm going to be doing some live stream content, and I may have already done some live streams when you're seeing this. So yeah, feel free to tune into those as they are a lot of fun. I got a lot of cool videos planned. It's just a matter of which one gets finished first. And yeah, thank you guys so much for watching this video. Have a great rest of your day, and goodbye.